Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Okay.
Lionel Grimes and Fred Jackson, welcome to the Widowhood.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So they say that now. Let's see how this goes. So Lionel Grimes and Fred Jackson are important to me because Lionel is my children's godparents and Fred is my husband. I know you like, oh, we ain't talk about that yet, right? So here we go. But the conversation today is about dating widows. And both of these gentlemen have experience with that. Lionel's, I'll let you talk about your wife. Who is she?
My wife is Kim Grimes. She was formerly Kim Clayton, then Kim Trawick, because she was married before me. And she had lost her husband in a military accident. And so I'm her second husband. Kim is from Philadelphia by way of, she moved here with her sister, and we met at a military conference. And that's how the relationship started. It wasn't one of those things where it was love at first sight. We just met. There was a little time in between. If you want to get into that later, we can, but we'll do that.
Okay, yeah. So Fred, tell us your initial meeting your wife.
Who? Initial meeting, we met online and set up a date to my favorite coffee shop, Cafe Stella, and so I had her meet me there one Tuesday after she got off work, and we had coffee and talked and went from there.
Okay. Was it love at first sight for you?
It was fondness at first sight.
Okay. Okay.
Walked in, she was quite impressive. Yeah.
So, when you think about your dating experience, is your wife the first person you dated that was a widow for both of you?
For me, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
So are there when you think about dating a widow, what are some things that you found that were different than when your normal, or I guess, dating experience outside of dating somebody who was a widow?
I think with Kim, it was more, she was, I wouldn't say more experienced, but it was the way she carried herself, it was different than anyone else that I had dated before. Okay. So not saying that other women were immature, but it was just something about her.
Like she had been a wife.
She had been a wife. Exactly.
Okay. How about you, Fred? The question is, dating, what challenges did you find different dating a widow than not? A policy. He wasn't even there when we started dating. And let me say it differently. When I talk about that, I'm talking about emotional triggers, all those different things that you have dating a widow that you may have not dated somebody that doesn't care about their ex anymore, or those types of things. And this conversation is to be as organic and as possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I had any challenge. I guess mine was easily adjustable because I was aware of the fact you were a widow. Mm-hmm. But I guess the way you were and your personality, I didn't think I had to tiptoe around stuff.
Okay.
Because we were just talking, and so we were talking. It seemed, like you said, very organic. We just talked, it was very relaxed. So and you talked about it openly, so it wasn't like I had to worry about stepping on a landmine or anything like that. By mentioning it inadvertently, it was going to upset you because you were processing it and you were speaking about it on your own. So you
bring up a good point, talking about it. When thinking about dating a widow, when you first hear those words, are there things like they have a dead spouse, like how are we going to approach that? Are you looking for that person to lead you into that?
Well, I mean, I didn't think about it that way. I guess it's, maybe I just thought initially just not overly much either, just okay, well, we'll see how it goes. And you kind of, the way your demeanor was like, okay, okay, because like I said, you're not, it's like when you mentioned it, you didn't like fall apart and start crying and all that stuff. You were speaking about it because it had been a little time had passed, and so it didn't seem like a sore spot or a pressure point. It wasn't like you're always tiptoeing around it, like don't mention it, all that stuff, because that was probably went a long way to making it very relaxed or more natural, because I didn't really have to worry about triggers, kind of, so to speak, like me doing anything.
Okay.
I mean, you had triggers that, I found later, but that had nothing to do with, that was normal. It was, like on certain dates or whatever.
Okay.
But that was easily understandable. It wasn't like anything unreasonable. If somebody, I guess if somebody had an unreasonable expectation, it might have been a problem.
Okay.
Like I expect you for some reason not to mention or think about it at all, your former husband, but that was kind of ridiculous. I guess I don't think that way.
Okay.
So it was, I think it was all right.
Lionel?
For me, it wasn't a big deal because I don't think that initially that the two of us meeting, it was one of those, just like I said, a love at first sight thing. We were out to, start a new relationship. It was, and Kim would say that I was a booty call.
It was a hookup.
And pretty much, yeah. And she had a boyfriend at the time. I didn't have a girlfriend, but there was somebody that, I was possibly interested in. So for the both of us, it was just a hookup. Okay. And she was thinking more so, well, I'll get what I want from this guy, he's gonna pay, some of my bills, all this kind of stuff. Little did she know I wasn't gonna pay anything. Not me. That was the wrong one. But it just kind of materialized, because when we first met, we met each other, we saw each other, and then there was a lull. We went on doing other things, and then we kind of, in passing, saw each other again. And that's when we kind of started dating. So, but when she told me that she was, married before, it really didn't matter to me because I wasn't looking for anything long term.
Okay.
So it wasn't a big issue.
I've heard men say, so when I first started dating after Mark died, I started online, and I did that because it was easier for me, the idea of talking to another man, like I had never thought about doing that.
Right.
But I had men tell me, well, if we're going to date, then you can't be talking about your husband, or I don't want, if you're not over him, then why should you bring him up?
Right.
What are your thoughts for a woman telling you that in their dating and knowing that they're a widow?
That wasn't an issue for me. And one of the selling points, Kim will tell you, in our relationship was, she said, there are going to be times when I'm going to think about him, and there are going to be times where, I may be thinking about him and it may draw up some emotions. And I said to her, well, if you bring it up and you cry, I'll be there to cry with you. And that was one of the selling points for her saying, hey, I got to keep this dude, because it was really no big deal. I know she was going to be thinking about him, and it wasn't an issue for me because, I'm here now, and I'm here to support. So that was really no big deal for me.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that same topic?
Kind of similar. It's like, I think we talked about it too. It's like, to me, it would have been a red flag or abnormal if you never mentioned it, because when you have children together, you were together for 30 some odd years.
32, yeah.
So to not mention that at all, that part of your life at all, to mention him or not have any kind of dates to remind you of anything, to me, that would be kind of like, something's wrong here. Because either one, you're hiding stuff, or you just don't care, which means that's not the kind of person I want to be with anyway, because it's like something, you got some mental issues I don't want to be getting into, but it's natural. I mean, you're going to do that. I mean, I have an ex-wife too, and it's like you have kids together, there's stuff that's going to come up. It doesn't mean, everything else stops. But it was nothing unreasonable.
So you say unreasonable. Some people think just the existence of that is too much for them to bear. What about your personality or confidence that didn't make you feel like it wasn't a threat or something to make you feel uncomfortable?
Not the way things turned out. Now, if there's for some reason that you're trying to get me to conform to be just like Mark, then that's a whole different ballgame. But that wasn't the issue. I was kind of looking out for that, but not in a big way. Just kind of like, keep my ear out. But that didn't happen, because that would have been kind of something we'd have to discuss, or maybe if it was too much, then, because I'm not going to change to be somebody else. So if you don't want me for me, then that's not going to work out.
So speaking about conforming to Mark, what was that one thing that you dropped on me that is very similar to Mark?
Well, I guess probably more than one thing, but hunting, I guess.
No, so how did that response go when I found out you were a hunter? I know that was kind of weird when I was asking you about that. We were at your apartment, and I was like, "Can I see you said you were a hunter," and I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Let me see your hunting gear." He was like,
"Oh, honey, yeah."
And
I was like, "All right." I mean, the way you said it, I was like, "You don't believe me?" I was like, "Why would I make up being a hunter?" So I was like, "All right." So yeah,
I had him bring out literally like all of his hunting gear.
Hunting license and all that stuff.
He said, "I hunt." I was like, what kind of hunting? And I was like, "Well, let me see your stuff." And he was like, your hunting gear. And he would bring it out. He was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
That was just a weird thing. Nobody make that up. It's like, hey.
But that wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about we were in the restaurant. You were in your uniform, and I found out about something.
Oh, my middle name.
Yeah, about that.
My middle name is Mark, so that was kind of.
Wow.
Yeah, she kind of like.
Yeah. And he hunts. And he fishes.
Yeah.
So how long were you? It was quite a while. You intentionally, I think, didn't tell me that for a little bit.
I don't think I was intentional. I just never.
Your middle name is my deceased husband's first name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it came up not too soon after we started dating, but it's just like I wasn't hiding it from you. I was just like, your name.
Okay.
My mother's name was Tina.
Okay.
So it's like that took me more back than anything. At first, you told me, "Oh, my name is Tina." I was like,
"Can't be kissing me and thinking about your mama."
I just did say, "Well, no, literally when you first told me, because we hadn't met yet, and you told me your name, and I was like, well." And I said, do I want to go forward with this at all? Because is this going to be too weird? And I had thought about it for a bit, and I was like, okay. Because that's kind of weird, because it's like, because I never met anybody else that was, now my mother's name wasn't Tina, it was Louis Tina, but everybody called her Tina.
Right.
Or Georgia, everybody called her Teeny, so same thing. But when she said her name was Tina, actually I was like, well, maybe it's not her real name. But no, it was her name, so I was like, all right.
4 letters, that's it.
So that was a little bit of like, yeah. Okay, I'm good. So, and for a while, it was still kind of like a little.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I told my kids about it, and they're like, that's it. But that was probably the biggest thing for me was the Tina thing.
Okay, I didn't think about that. It was a Mark thing for me. Because in my mind, I was sort of thinking, so if I ever yell this out in a passionate moment, then I'm still calling technically the same person. Yeah. I'm clear with that. It's not a problem.
No flag comes
right.
I'm just calling you by your middle name.
Yeah.
So what about you, Lionel? Any part of thinking or talk to other male friends and they say, like, how are you going to feel if they talk about their ex or they're just, in what right there, people say ex, but it's your deceased husband.
Right.
There's more memories. There's more of a relationship. This is a relationship that ended not because you wanted it to.
Right.
but under extenuating circumstances. And Kim's husband, like you said, was killed in the, and they were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
And got married, and it was and Kim and I will talk later, and I'll let her speak more to the details of that.
Yeah.
To see that never felt like you were living in the limelight of her deceased husband, or feeling conflict of that. No,
never. And I didn't talk to anybody else about him.
Oh, okay.
I have friends, but it's not, folks I would call up and say, hey, I'm dating a young lady, and she's a widow. No. And it even got to the point where it didn't bother me at all that she talked about him. And still today, she tells me that his stone marker or grave marker, the numbers are 444. So wherever we go, if, car passes by, there's 444s, on the license plate. Or I'll wake up, in the morning and look at the clock or look at my watch and it's 4:44. I'll say, Kim, it's 4:44. Or, and it's kind of like a game, but it's a reminder because she will say, look, there's 444s. Hey, Lafayette, and it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, that was her first love, but it's not anything that I have to compete against because she's with me now. And it's not where she's ever tried to conform me of,
the same thing.
Yeah, she's never held me to, try to meet his standards or anything like that. We're two different guys, so that's never been a big deal or a big issue.
So if I hear what you're both saying, that if you're dating a widow, or if you're a widow, or if you're dating a widower, and this person is trying to conform you to their deceased spouse, that's sort of something.
That's a flag.
That's a flag.
Yeah.
That's a flag that we should talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though it was a booty call, or we were not, over there to try something. What if Kim or I did that? How do you think you would have approached that conversation?
I think for me, that would have been a turnoff. It would have been a conversation behind it. Hey, I can't be him. I'm not trying to be him, and don't try to conform me to him. Let me take you back. This was, like I said, when Kim met me, she had a boyfriend, and they broke it off after that. And I remember there was a time where she bought me a pair of shoes. And she, gives me this box. I open it up and it's a pair of shoes, and they're slip-on, patent leather, little pointy shoes. And I'm like, what is this for? And she's like, I'm buying you some shoes, but these are the type of shoes the boyfriend wore.
Oh.
I was like, I don't wear shoes like that, And I told her, I said, I wear Stacey Adams. And she was like, Stacey Adams? Well, tell me about Stacey Adams. And after that, that was all she ever bought me, if she bought me shoes. But I don't think she was trying to, conform me to her boyfriend, but she just assumed, well, he liked those shoes, maybe he would, and that wasn't my style. I have a totally different style than what that guy wore, but she wasn't trying to, make me out to be like him or whatever. So, and it's just a mere conversation. Hey, this is what I like. This is the style that I have, and that squashed it.
Okay. So for earlier, you spoke about triggers. What are some things that you've seen at certain dates or certain times in my behavior, and how you had to manage that?
I mean, holidays, certain holidays, Christmas, birthday, Mark's birthday, or your wedding day, or the day he died, stuff like that pops up. And at first I didn't know those dates. So when you were your behavior was changing, I didn't understand what it was. I just thought you were having issues, but I tried to be respectful. But then you told me what it was. So I try and keep a lookout for it, but I even more understand what it is. It's not, I mean, it's not really an issue. I just try and make things easier for you if I can, and, you know, go from there.
So when you say my behavior changed, what are some things that you've noticed?
Sometimes you get sad or kind of down, and that's not your normal state, and so some things would upset you that normally wouldn't, and so I mean, nothing unexpected.
No, because I'm asking those questions to describe it.
Yeah. I mean,
Because somebody else may be wondering, like, they say they're happy with me and we're married, but then I notice they behave like this.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking.
I mean,
like,
for you,
what
it's very mild. I mean, because to you, I think you thought you were more demonstrative than you were. And sometimes you would start crying, but that was not in the majority. And when you told me what it was, I was like, okay, well, that's understandable. But sometimes you would apologize for your behavior, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? Because it's not, for you, it's more demonstrative seemingly than it is for me. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm moving the plant. Keep talking.
You see more? But I mean, so it's, like I said, nothing unusual. Excuse me. You explained what was going on. I didn't really have to pull anything out of you. You would catch yourself and explain it, and then I said, okay, we talk about it a little bit, and then I try to be aware of it. The dates were coming up, and just deal with it as it comes. And certain things are more triggered. I think more the dates coming up, you're more worried about your children, especially your daughter, than yourself. And so that would I think that played into getting you more like upset because you're worried about her. And so, but like I know I'm not keep saying reasonable, but to me it's okay. That's normal. That's the way things are supposed to be. And like I said, it would be to me it would be more of an alarming signal or red flag that just kind of blew all that stuff off and nothing ever popped up. It's like, well, that's not normal.
Well, you say the word normal, and I want to try to just always unpack what that looks like, because a lot of people would say, I don't know if I want to date a widow or widower, because they're going to come with all this extra baggage from their deceased spouse. And Lionel, you talked about comforting Kim or being there. Not those words, but how would you describe what that looked like? Or what were her emotions that gave you a clue that you needed to be supported?
It was just like Fred said. She told me from the beginning, there are going to be times when, his birthday comes up, our wedding day, our, anniversary times, that I'm going to be sad. And I just gave her space. Now, if you want me to be there, I'll be there to, to comfort you. But if you need your own space to where you need to go and, process it, hey, I'm going to give you that time, but I'm still there for you if you need me. So she laid it out. And there were those years that it happened, but as time went on, she still, would bring it up, today's, Lafayette's birthday, and that was pretty much it. But it wasn't a time like of mourning or anything like that. Like now, it just goes, it's just a normal day, and she doesn't dwell on it. She doesn't get sad, but it's just letting me know, hey, because, I really don't keep up with his, birthday or their wedding anniversary or that kind of thing. But she'll let me know that it's that time. But, the time for getting sad and stuff, that's gone now.
Okay.
So
it takes a great deal of confidence in the person that's dating the widow or widower to know where they stand in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, a lot of those reactions that you talked about would be responded to differently. Or what do you think? And did you always think you had a lot of confidence in a relationship?
I thought I did, and she helped me with it also. Kim is very supportive in so many ways of making me feel, comfortable around her or whatever. She's always supportive. She, never been one to compare me to him or anything like that. It's just me, I'm the one now, and so it's never been a big deal. So.
What about you, Mr. Jackson?
I mean, pretty similar. I mean, I maybe approached it a little differently. I was determined that, because of some past experiences, I'm not going to let somebody bend me the way I don't want to go. So, I mean, there are certain things that are going to happen that I can go with the flow and adjust to, but I do have like a hard line. And so, if, like Lionel said, if you're trying to make me that person or make me conform to that person's image or criticize based on something that other person used to do, that was unsat. That wasn't going to work. So that would be like okay, we're done. That was it. So,
Yeah.
And that was we dated for a long time. So because there were things I was looking for and just being careful with, but it really the widow stuff. It was just general personality stuff. And so, if at any time I detected that was going to be a real issue, even after a couple conversations, at a certain point, okay, well, this is not going to change. Then okay, I'm going to go elsewhere. So I wasn't really pressured because I already had my, I guess, plan in place or my certain limits set. And so it never was an issue. And I really didn't dwell on it. It never was an issue. And I just try to be conscious of like, okay, something's coming up right now. And or you'll say something and I say, oh yeah, okay. And then we go from there. But your reaction has gotten less and less too. Like I said, more of it's targeted toward Catherine and Alexander than yourself. You just kind of worry about how they're doing.
I never thought of it that way.
So, because I've seen that kind of be the change in focus.
So you two just have the perfect dating experiences with the widow. So
It's not perfect. I mean, I was learning from experience that, okay, at this point in my life, I need to look for this, and this, and it's non-negotiable. Certain things are non-negotiable, certain things are. And once I had my plan in place, then it took a lot of pressure off of me in certain ways because, okay, well, I know here are my limits, here's my line. So if something is too far over that and it's a unsatisfactory situation, then, okay, well, it's easy. Plan B, boom, go that way.
But that wasn't predicated on being a widow. That was just about dating women in general.
The whole package. So that was just another aspect that was in there, and it had nothing to do with my limits. It was like in a box. You had your stuff in the box, and stuff is going around. All this stuff's acceptable, but it never crossed too far over here, so it didn't trigger any negative reaction. So I was like, okay, well, this is, because everybody's got baggage, just different kinds.
Yeah,
But it's just different.
And I think with me, I think dating a woman with children was harder than dating a widow.
Okay.
Because, I don't have any children and I've never been one to want any children.
Besides
your children. But it's
clear about
that was
like these are the contract, like in my will.
Yeah. But I think that was more difficult than dating a widow. That's another story.
No, that was one of the things I had too.
It is.
No children that were not adults.
Exactly.
If a woman had children that were not adults, then to me that was like, oh, now you can start that.
Okay, so you mentioned children, and this is going to be unique to you. What did you think about? I don't even know if you can see Apollo down there. He's going for it. That my children and their dad no longer being here, and how that would impact you in this relationship.
Well, I mean, they were adults already. They weren't living in the house. They were already out on their own. And so that was one, okay, that box is ticked. My thing, as long as even if they didn't really like me, as long as there wasn't any overt hostility,
okay,
then I could deal with that.
But you did think about that.
Oh yeah, you have to. I mean, I would have to. I definitely did that. And so that was fine. I mean, it wasn't like, and I know people say, well, it doesn't matter what the children think. Well, it kind of does because they're part of the family. So if there's friction from one end, there's going to be friction generated other places. So I don't want to have that going on. And I also was seeing during the time how, things interacted and whether it would affect us in a negative way. And it didn't. So it was, like I said, I had my criteria set, so it was right along the line. So
I'm going to flip this a little bit. So,
Sure.
Lionel, I know you don't have children, but you have been invested in my life for a long time.
Yeah.
Like when you were dating Kim, I knew you then.
Yes.
So Mark's death impacts you heavily.
Yes.
What was the thought when you came to your mind when you thought about me dating, or what these, like what it would look like, or when you met Fred? Like, was it like the big brother, like coming, like we're going to see what this is about, or how was that for you?
No, it wasn't, because, Tina is different for men.
Okay.
When they lose a spouse than a woman losing her husband. It's different. Women tend to cling to that.
Okay.
Where men, it's not long before they're going out trying to find someone else or start dating,
right,
so to say. Not trying to go out and find another wife, but with you, just like other women, it's a process. And it's like, and I could be wrong, but it's like, you don't want to seem like you're, I don't know what women think. Is it feel like, I'm cheating on my husband if I go out and find someone else? I don't know what women think, but it just takes longer. Or they never go out and find anyone else, where it's different. So when it came to you, when it wasn't I got to check this guy out, to make sure he's the right one for Tina. No, Tina, do your thing. If you want to go out and find someone, I'm happy for you. Mm-hmm. And I hope that you find someone not like Mark, not saying that you find someone better than Mark, but I hope that you find someone that you're happy with. Okay. And that's the key, and it's not, like I said, I'm not the one that's going to say, Tina, you need to, this dude is a nut. You need to, you need to.
Something really out of the pocket. You would have
right. Well, I would have said,
You said something to Kim to say something to me.
Right. I don't think Tina, I saw that dude, hanging out somewhere, but no. But Fred, he was cool, we kind of hit it off from the start. I thought he was a nice guy. I think he's a nice guy, but it wasn't that I'm going to be the overprotective friend. No, I was happy for you. So even if you would have started dating sooner than you did,
right,
I wouldn't have had anything negative to say. Well, Tina, she should have got out there fast. No, this is your life.
Okay.
I'm happy for you.
That's fair. And one thing I'm not sure if people know, that Mark had his family had a long line of heart conditions. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that made dating easier for me is that he literally said that when I'm not in this world, I want you to be happy. I want you to find somebody else.
Right.
And I remember telling him, you are up too late at night. I need you to go to bed. Like, you up watching TV. But when it happened, I was like, wow, what a gift that he gave me to say something like that. Because a man is not ever wanting to think about his wife being with someone else when you're happy with them. And for him to tell me that, and thinking of his own mortality and where that would go, and then being able to do that. Yeah. That is a lot. This is a question I haven't asked you. So since Mark died, how have you felt as far as in your role with Catherine and Alex?
It's not like that we talk all the time. Now, Alex called me on Father's Day the other day and wished me a happy Father's Day. I wasn't available because he called me. It was during church service. Okay. So I called him back the next day. And then we were out in California on a cruise, and we did not go to SeaWorld because Catherine was in pain. Yeah. So we went out and hung out with her. So, and every now and then she will text me and say, Uncle Lionel, something, or ask me something. But it's not like that I'm their, I know I'm their godfather, but it's not like, we talk, but it's not as often as probably.
Be a pseudo dad.
Right, exactly. I asked Alex the other day, hey, because we do that food program, right. The pantry, and I asked him, hey, you need some food, come on around. And he said he gets something, one of those delivery food services or something. So he said he was good. So
But I think that also came from, I mean, when Mark and I made that decision, the children were small.
Yeah.
And so even when we moved to Pennsylvania, they spent an intimate amount of time even coming back to visit with you guys.
Yes.
Even as annoying teenagers.
Yes.
And
Yes. It's cussing.
But having those relationships. So Fred, it sounds like to me, being able to communicate is really key. I mean, people say communication is a big thing, but if you don't have that, then that's really, because both of you said that whether it was myself or Kim, we laid out what our expectations were, and we were honest with you to tell you what it's going to look like.
Well, that's the not just communication, but genuine communication, because people will communicate, but as you know, a lot of times they're not honest in that communication. They set things up or say things they want you to hear, but not really what they want or what they expect. And so that's the difference. And that's where it was, a big difference. You were honest about what you wanted. It was, we had a lot of conversations and you asked a lot of questions. And I asked a few, but I mean, we got things to where, okay, that's good. We got things out, so.
I just want to be clear about this. Fred would wake up every morning. Go ahead. What would happen every morning when you got on your phone?
There'd be a list of, like a laundry list of questions and
from her?
Oh, yeah.
So you had a pop quiz every morning.
Pre-flight checklist every morning. It's like, I'm no good until I get coffee. So it'd be hours before I responded to that. I have to get coffee, get to work.
It was not hours.
I was like, hey.
He would wake up and say, good morning, give me a little bit to answer this.
Like, who that?
It was at least 3 to 10 questions.
Yeah, it was some stuff, yeah.
Every day. For like almost 3 years?
Yeah, well,
wow.
Text questions got a little bit less, but it was questions. But I mean, the funny part is the question or the reason was this funny part is I wake up in the list because you get up at 4. So the questions would be there when I wake up, even when I had to go to work at like 5:30, because I would wake up and just roll in the clothes and go, and the questions are already on the list.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I'm looking at one eye. Yeah. My brain doesn't work till after a couple cups of coffee anyway. So.
What did you think about the question?
At first I was like, okay, and but I mean,
like you thought they were gonna just die, like they.
Yeah, I figured they would die out, but they didn't. So, and if I didn't remember to answer them on the text and later on in person, it's like, oh, you never answered my questions. I'm like, well, I'm scroll back into these questions. But I mean, that was good though. We got information out, and sometimes I'm probably not as good as letting stuff out as I should. And you get me to say stuff and pull stuff out, but sometimes it's just answering your questions. So. Which is good, and we have to do that because if you have things you want answered, I'm supposed to answer them. So.
But we did talk about communication. Mm-hmm. So we met online, and we went to Zooks, we met on the dating app Zooks, and we went to Cafe Stella, and it was saying, okay, this is not a booty call, not a hookup. I wanted to know if there was chemistry.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, I mean, that's the whole point is to meet. It's
right,
so,
to be able to do that.
We went to my favorite coffee shop. So we sat down, we had coffee and talked. So it was a good conversation.
And then on the second date, it was like, okay, we both talked about like where we saw this going and what this would look like. So that communication was very clear. How long in that process before you felt like it was genuine though?
I mean, I thought right away you were being genuine just because of your demeanor. I didn't think you were trying to put anything on. So it's just a matter of us just kind of having enough back and forth to start filling in blanks and seeing who each other was. But I didn't really think at any point you were being phony.
Okay.
Because that would have been another red flag. That was actually, as we discussed, I was watching for that. If I picked up that there's any kind of phony stuff going on, to me that would have been like, oh, hit the eject button, I'm out. So.
Eject button.
It was like this.
You know, like this, look. Oh no!
Roof of the coffee shop. But I mean, that's the way I was. I was kind of hypersensitive, hyper vigilant about that.
Had like in his pocket.
Yeah. I had my finger in the panic button. It was like, but Yeah, I mean, so that was kind of something I was watching out for, and I told you that. I was kind of like hyper-vigilant about that kind of stuff, but I never got that sense from you. So.
And I'm asking one question. I got something for you, Lionel.
Okay.
So Lionel mentioned about dating somebody when he met Kim. Were you dating somebody or seeing somebody when we first met?
Yeah, well, not. I mean, kind of. I was dating in general, and it was somebody I was kind of seeing casually, but nothing. It wasn't anything serious going on.
So Lionel talked about Kim carried herself differently. Did you find that with me having been somebody's wife, and how did that show up to you?
I didn't associate it with having been somebody's wife. I just associated it with your personality. I was looking more at your personality and the way you acted, not as a reflection of you being someone else's wife. I was just acting looking at you because that's who you were then. You were on your own, and so I wanted to see how just looking at the way you were and trying to take that in honestly and not shade anything of my own into it. You're just looking at who you were, and that was another thing. That's why, we took our time. We kind of agreed to that because there were things I had to see for myself and work out in my head. Okay, this is who this person is, and I trust this image. And so that was an important part of it.
So Lionel, how long in your dating experience with Kim did it go from the hookup to like, okay, I can see this being something more?
Okay, because we met at a military conference,
Right.
and it was in civilian clothes.
Oh, we can talk about that. Yes.
So at the time, I was an officer. I was a young officer. She was enlisted. So she didn't know who I was. When we got to the conference, everybody was in their classes, and the classes were broken down by alphabetical order. Kim's last name started with a T. Kim got there late because Kim wasn't the... She wasn't the model soldier. Let me just say that. So she got there late, and we had room in our class, so they just put her in there. And she'll tell you she went around the room looking at who was in there, looking at the guys, and then we locked eyes, and it was just, kind of like, hey thing. And she was getting up, being disruptive, pouring me water and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, she tell me about this.
Yeah. And the lady was telling her, the instructor, you need to go, sit down and stuff. And then she asked me to, if I wanted to go to lunch, because I didn't know anybody in there. But we had a mutual friend that was in the group, and she had asked her who I was, and she said, oh, that's, and he's a lieutenant. Yeah, I know him. And she was like, oh, he's an officer, that kind of thing.
Okay, so hold on for a second. Break down what that means. The officer,
the officer enlisted thing in the military are not supposed to hook up, especially if you're it's fraternization. And we weren't in the same battalion or unit, but we weren't supposed to be intermingling.
That's your idea of the grade.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, we were in civilian clothes, so we didn't know. And I had never seen her before. And she had asked me, it was lunchtime, and she knew a lot of the folks in the class. I didn't know anybody because I'm
These
not.
two are low key.
Yeah.
Low.
Really low. Good. And she asked me, and I'm going to say this. She said, would you like to go out to lunch with us? And I was like, okay. And she said, what do you like to eat? And I was like, I don't care. I eat anything. She was like, you need to watch what you say.
I know my girl. She was like,
And that was the thing, just like you were saying, the way you carried yourself, as a widow or widow. Kim didn't carry herself as a widow. Kim was kind of out there. She cursed, she drank, she probably smoked weed, and she was just kind of wild.
She was mad though.
Yeah, she was.
We'll get into that. I mean,
Yeah.
Kim, and
she was hurting.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something to talk about. Kim's husband was killed accidentally on a military training exercise.
Yes.
They came to her door. She was there by herself.
Yes.
And they said Lafayette was dead.
Yes.
And she was shattered.
Yes.
And she spent a great deal of time being mad at God being mad at any dude and trying to use as an opportunity to whittle her way through that and just go through that and try to clear her pain.
Exactly.
So we were in two different places and phases of that idea of being a widow.
Yes.
Or that phase of our life. I had children. Mark and I were together with 32 years. Her and Lafayette, I don't even think got 5. It was like 3.
I didn't think it was. I think it was like a year or something.
So there was so much that was ripped from her.
Yes.
That she never got.
And she was young. She was in her early 20s.
Right. So, and then I was in my 50s.
Yes.
So Kim, horrible. She spent a lot of time trying to find herself through that misery, doing through dudes and everything else, masking her pain versus being able to deal with it. So it was coded with a lot of stuff.
And she didn't actually want a long-term relationship because she was getting military benefits from his death. So, and if she married somebody, she would lose those, you know?
And that's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Because people choose that they just don't want to commit. And then also the idea probably for Kim to get married again if that husband would die.
Yes.
In the pain and agony of that.
That's possible.
So go, I'll circle back.
So she did all these things, and then, like I said, I was the booty call, and from the time we met, we may have went out or something like that, and then it just kind of fell off. I was kind of in the process of meeting someone. She had a steady boyfriend in college. And it was one day, some time had gone by, and we were running PT. And we ran PT in the evening. And we were running, I was running, and I see her coming towards me. And I was like, that's Kim. And we passed each other, and we're kind of like, hey. And that was when the PT uniforms were kind of fitting. And when I looked over at her, I was like, goodness gracious, this girl dragging a wagon. But
and she's still dragging that wagon.
Yeah, but this was a little wagon back then. And I was like, wow. And we started back calling each other, and we found out that we lived less than a mile and a half from each other.
Okay.
And I used to ride my bicycle around to her where she stayed, because she lived with her sister and they had another roommate.
Okay.
And
I heard about that.
Yeah, and we would see each other, we'd go out, and Kim would meet other guys, and guy want to take her out or something like that. And then it started getting to the point where we were seeing more of each other. And the one girl that worked where I worked, I wanted to, be intimate with her. And Kim was always there. And it was like, she was blocking. And it was like, golly, aren't you going to Philly to see your mom or something? And when the time came, when the opportunity came, Kim left, and it was like, okay, this is it. And she came over, and it was, it was getting down to it, and it was like, I was thinking about her the whole time, and nothing happened. And, the other young lady, she was wondering, what did I do? What's wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, there's somebody else that I'm interested in. And I was thinking about her the whole time. And when she came back, she was already in the mindset of, I'm going, I'm done with him, because he don't know what he wants to do. And that's when I asked her out. We went to a restaurant called Quincy's, and it was on Denby Boulevard. And it's it's still there now, but it's all boarded up and stuff.
Okay.
And that's where I asked her to be my girlfriend. And I said, I want a relationship with you. And it went from there. And the good thing about Kim is she's always been a communicator. Now, she didn't wake up in the morning with a list of texts, asking me a bunch of questions, but she is a big communicator. And there were times
We
when,
weren't even texting them when you and Kim were dating, so that's not even fair.
right, okay.
So if it was, my girl would have had a list.
Right. So it was, we just communicated a lot. And there were times when, I was the type that I would shut down, but she would not let me do that. It was, no, we need to talk about whatever.
To this day.
To this day. I got an earful the other day. And that's just her. And, we fix whatever the issue is right then. And then she will know, because the other night, she had said something to me that I didn't appreciate. And the next morning she was like, something, I know something was wrong with you. Because, we always agreed we wouldn't go to bed mad about anything. Okay. I wasn't mad, but it was just, I didn't like what she said. And she said she was saying it in a joking way, but she let me know, hey, I know when something's wrong, because there are certain things that you do. So
if I'm understanding you correctly, dating a widow is not something to be afraid of.
Not at all. That was never really a big issue at all. It really wasn't.
Okay. And for you, Fred, you would say the same?
I mean, similar. I never really thought about it. And then when it came up, it was like, well, it depended on you. To me, it depended on who you were and the way you acted. Everybody's not the same. Some people are dysfunctional about stuff like that. And it's, or even if they're not dysfunctional, it's just whatever behavior they had, who they were wasn't acceptable to me, then it was, okay, that's not acceptable to me, I'm just going to move on. It wasn't like, okay, well, I'm going to make you act differently, because I didn't want you doing that to me, so I'm not going to do that. It was just a matter of, okay, well, it's keep the stress down. It's like, okay, well, we don't have anything invested in each other yet, we'll learn, and if it's not something that's right, then I'll just move on.
Okay. For me, as the widow, dating, in my head, it seemed like a big thing. It seemed like, and maybe it was from the people that I engaged with beforehand. So for me, it was the idea, well, one, Mark was white. And so even whether I was talking to somebody European or somebody African American, it was a big thing in their head. Like, well, what did your dead husband look like? Who was he? There were initially a lot of questions that seemed off-putting to me, wanting to know, like, what would the competition look like?
It was like insecurity.
So did either of you ever feel like the deceased spouse was a competition or something you had to measure up to, whether it was sexually, emotionally, financially, or anything like that?
Never. For me, it was never one of those things, well, how was he in bed, or am I better than him? No, I could care less. I'm trying to do my thing, But it was no big deal. Just like I said, it was just like dating just somebody who was never married before. It was no different.
Okay.
It was no different. That was never anything in the back of my head. Am I going to be able to, meet his, whatever he did, or compete with him? And I wasn't trying to do that, because he's not here anymore. So it's just me.
Right.
It's just me.
What about for you?
Kind of the same. And I mean, we were pretty much, right away even before we met, it's like, what do you do, this and that? And I told you, so I mean, financially, it wasn't really an issue, because you already knew up front, hey, I was, police sergeant, so I didn't make as much as a union electrician, but that was just like, okay, I'm cool with it. If you're not, then we wouldn't have started. So that's why, I'm trying to hide anything. It's like, this is what you got. So no surprises.
I guess I'm gonna have to find some people that are dating widows that are having a challenge, because it doesn't, the challenges you've had in dating are regular dating challenges.
Right.
It's not so much that is a widow-centric scenario. But I will ask a couple other things. Can you think, Lionel, of the most triggering experience Catherine, Kim had about Lafayette and how you showed up for her?
The most triggering.
Or emotional, or like something which hurts sadness or emotional about Lafayette, or it just didn't exist?
No, I think for me, it was just the situation that happened, how it happened. And early in the relationship, when she would, that anniversary would come up, or the day he died, his birthday. Those are the only things. And like I said, that didn't last a long time. There was a few years that, she would get sad, but not to the point where she was, locked in a room crying or something like that. It just happened. And she was sad because it's normal. But that's about the only thing. It was nothing that, it was a big incident or something that just sticks in my mind. Wow, that happened. No, nothing.
I appreciate that you both have talked about that it's normal. The idea that this person is going to miss this other person. It has nothing to do with how they feel about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how they feel about this person that they're grieving. And their grieving doesn't mean that they don't have space to love somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's oftentimes people are thinking that because someone's a widow or widower, they're gonna half love me.
Right.
So the question to both of you, sometimes I hear that if someone's thinking about being with a widow or a widower, they feel like they're going to be half loved. They're not going to feel like that person is totally committed to them, or they feel jealous or feeling some kind of way. If those thoughts came to your mind, or what did the other person do to make you not feel that way?
I've never felt that way. And I explained that the thing was, Kim introduced me to Lafayette's mother, and she welcomed me with open arms. And she would talk to us every week. When we were gone on a trip or something, she would call looking for us and, where are you two? Y'all on a cruise? Or, but we would always let her know when we were going somewhere. When we visited Philly to visit Kim's family, we would always go spend time with her. I met Lafayette's brother. He was cool. Matter of fact, he was even in the area once and contacted Kim, said, hey, and he was just down the street, and we didn't know he was coming around, but he's visited us before, so they've always made me feel welcome. So it was never a competition thing, or I was trying to do more to outdo him. Just like I said before, he's not here, so it's just me. So I can just be me, do whatever I need to do to keep her happy, and that was my goal.
And Mark's family is not close, but in the place of that, it would be my intricate friendship group that I guess would be similar to that. Did my friends make you feel welcome, or did you feel like, how did that make you feel entering a group of friends or my family and knowing that? How was that for you?
Your friends made me feel welcome. It was, I didn't have the issue with that. Nobody was standoffish or nobody acted weird or anything. It was just the opposite. So, you do have a big network of friends.
I do.
Gigantic.
Yeah. And I don't know do you remember when we met?
Go ahead. Because you remember better than me.
Yeah, we were at Fort AP Hill.
Okay.
At the
the range, yes.
At the rifle range. You were in the foxhole next to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was AP Hill.
That's where we went.
Yes.
Yeah, it was AP up there.
And that's when I first saw you. And I don't even know if Kim and I were together then.
Okay.
I don't know. You two probably knew each other.
Yeah, because we were in college together.
Right.
But it's funny because, to that, I saw Kim at reserves, and then I saw her at college, and it was like, hey, because when you're not in uniform and you're in civilian clothes, you look different. I was like, that's the same chick that's in my unit. And so then we started talking. So
Yeah.
I knew Kim. So when she started dating you, I knew about that happening.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was when I first saw you, and we talked, and I thought you were really nice. I loved your complexion. And I was like, golly, that chocolate girl over there. You couldn't shoot worth a dime.
But she cute though.
She's nice to look at, but I don't want to be in combat.
Just so you know, my shooting is better now, so don't mess with me.
You wear a helmet.
I've gotten sharpshooter before. Go ahead.
Right.
Whatever.
But that was it. But I don't know how we met with Kim after that. I don't know how.
Just you dating her and just
okay.
over time connecting because
Yeah.
I mean I knew her before you guys were dating.
Right.
We had a friendship involved with that. So that I think it just evolved over time.
Yeah.
And just the connection of it all and things like that. I mean, I remember when you guys were getting married, being at the house and putting everything together and all the stuff. Oh my gosh, well, they're cake toppers. So Lionel liked the chocolate girl, you see Kim.
Yeah.
So they have these cake toppers and we're looking at stuff and Lionel was like, who's that? And I was like, that's y'all. He's like, I'm gonna need to fix that. I was like, Kim, what are you talking about? He got some paint and made Kim darker. So her cake topper, I was like, well, he did fix it though.
Yeah, it looked more like us.
I think that's when we started sort of creating our own relationship,
And you remember-
independent. Then, like before, everything was just like me, you, and Kim or Mark. But I think you and I started evolving and having our friendship that is separate from Kim.
And you remember you put a party together for her. You remember when she stayed in the apartments over in
I remember the
across
part,
from Beachmont?
right?
You put a party together for her. It was like a little surprise thing. I remember it was you, Mark, and a friend of mine was in town.
Okay.
And she lived upstairs in that apartment, and we had a little party for her. It was for her birthday.
Do you remember the first time Mark went to her? Did she tell you about the story? Yeah.
No.
Oh, I'll say that for Kim.
No.
Thing. We'll say that for that. I love that you two have found out how to navigate something that you now say is normal, that other people are extremely fearful of.
It's got to be some personal insecurities for people to feel that way, or to feel that they have to compete, or they want to know all this information about your former, husband or the spouse, whether it's a man or a woman.
Right.
If you're asking all those questions, you have some personal insecurities. That had never crossed my mind.
What about you, Ben?
That's like people when they ask about, people you've dated before, they want all these details about other women I've dated. It's like that. What's that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
And, vice versa. And like I said, I guess compared to some bad experiences I had before meeting you, that was like, okay, well, this is fairly normal. Or I was already prepared. I've gotten myself together where, okay, I need to, have myself in order first. And I think that's, like Lyle said, there's probably some insecurities on the other people's part when they want to dig into all this stuff, or they have to know all this stuff, because what do they have to do with it? I mean, you're trying to model yourself after that person for some reason, which is not good either.
Yeah, that's strange.
So what I'm hearing is, we're going to focus on this part. If you're dating a widow, don't get bogged down in the details of who their deceased spouse was, because it's not going to serve you well.
No.
Because they are deceased. You are the person that's in their life and having this dating experience.
That's me. That's how I feel about it.
So Fred, same question I asked Lionel earlier. Can you think of what was maybe the most emotional or triggering moment I had and how you had to show up for me?
Yeah, I think it was the first year we were dating. A date came up. I don't think we've been dating that long, but
I want to say it was about 6 months or so. Yeah.
But I can't remember what date it was. There was a date came up. I don't know if it was
It was my 1 year anniversary of living in Virginia is actually what it was.
It was? Okay,
Yeah.
because I know that was, you were emotional, you were crying. upset about stuff, which was not normal. And so, yeah, we talked about it. You told me finally what it was. And it's like, okay, well, that's not unreasonable. So we just, you explained it to me and we dealt with it and went on from that. That was, I mean, you've had other dates that were similar, and that's all gotten, I think it's like Lionel says, gotten less over the years, but it's definitely gotten less. And as far as certain trigger dates, like birthdays or there was some date.
The date of his death, I think, is more impactful.
There was some date that popped up and you said we shouldn't have had it on this date.
Oh, my birthday.
Yeah,
we got married the day after my birthday.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, that seemed really cute when we were in our 20s. Now that he's not on this earth, it's like me just thinking of my birthday would automatically start thinking of our wedding anniversary, which has no significance to me now. But it took a while to in therapy and talking and going through that process to go.
That's significance. It's a reminder change. So
Yes.
But yeah, I mean that's but that's something that's not as big a deal. It's like it's expected, but it's also you seem to be processing it better. And it doesn't make you break down. But even if it did, that's like, okay, it's not like it's an unreasonable situation.
Okay.
Because even with Kim, she told me the story or the situation, how it occurred. And I've heard it a couple of times. It wasn't, something that she was, just talking about all the time. But she told me about it, but she didn't harp on a lot of things a lot of situations or incidents with her former husband. I mean, it wasn't always his name coming up for something, or comparing me to him or anything. It was never that.
So when you started dating Kim, were there pictures of Lafayette up in the house?
There were pictures.
Okay. And how did that resonate with you?
It didn't. I saw what he looked like, good looking guy. Back then that was when everybody was into the warm-up suits, the Puma warm-up suits.
And I'm sure they had matching.
Run DMC and all that kind of stuff. But, he had his pictures, had his Kango hat, and that was it. I mean, even if she had him out, that was no big deal to me.
So, but see, you say that. But I have spoken to widows or widowers, and people don't even want to come into the house and date them because their deceased loved ones' pictures are still up.
Right.
Or they don't want that to be a focal point. They used to say, well, you're not ready because you still have their picture up.
I'll give you an example. Just like if I was gone, and when you come into our foyer,
Yes.
all those cruise pictures, all those, to some people, those got to go in order for me to come in here. That would have been no issue for me.
Yeah, I was just saying that's kind of strange. It's like, okay, well, you had kids together, so now you're not allowed to talk about your kids. You can have your kids' pictures out because that's something else that, I mean, that's kind of weird. To me, that's kind of, well, I guess people do worry about that, but again, like I said, that's a issue. That's a negative issue that they need to work out because that's unrealistic because that's a big chunk of your life or an important part of your life that how are you going to edit that out? And if you're going to do that, then that's also something wrong with that too. So if you're going to just forget about all that stuff just to be with me, then there's something wrong with that too. So that's not going to work.
And for somebody to act like that should be a flag.
Yeah. For the widow to go, run.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're bringing those insecurities into our relationship,
that's not going to be good.
And that is not healthy.
And that right there is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to the both of you. Because people may have been expecting, well, where's the difficulty? Where's the challenge? Kim and Lionel's marriage, unfortunately, was a good thing for me to model as I'm now in that situation, being a widow and understanding how a man can show up for you and not make it a hindrance. So the thing when you were talking about where Kim said that you showed up for her and that made her say, okay, let me lock this guy down. On the 1-year anniversary of me living in Virginia, that was my moment with Fred. And I remember it because just more emotional. It was the first something in the water event down in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
Yolanda, Fred, and I went down there. It got rained out the first year, and we wound up going to Cooper's Hawk to eat. Yolanda went home afterwards. Fred and I went back to my townhouse for a bit before he went home. I was literally at the kitchen in the little townhouse I was renting. I was getting a glass of water and walking back to him. And I was standing there frozen. And I just started crying. And I was like, that day was the 1 year anniversary of living in Virginia. And I was thinking, this is not, Mark and I were planning on moving. Mark had already moved here.
Right.
I was planning to move here. So the idea of being in Virginia was something we were excited. Everybody was looking forward to us coming back.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was dead and this guy is in my house, and this is a house Mark's never lived in, and all that stuff just started waving over me. And I was standing there and I was just crying. And Fred came over. He was trying to look for a glass that got broken. Like, did I drop something? Was something going on? And I said, you seem like a nice enough guy. I said, but this is like the 1 year anniversary of me living here, and this is not how I thought my life was going to go. What do you do? First, take the glasses out of my hand so I don't drop those, put those on the counter. And he said, do you want me to hug you? Do you want me to leave? Do you want me to stay? Whatever you want me to do. And you said, you never have to feel bad about missing or loving your husband because you never planned on this happening. And I was like, oh, we here now. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's not something you put on a dating app. I need you to always understand I'm going to love my late husband, or I need you to have enough confidence as a man to know that I love you, but know a part of me will always love him. And that is why to have this conversation, not that everybody's going to exactly get that, but to know it is possible for somebody to show up in your life in this season and accept you for right who you are and support you and love you and be okay.
Yeah.
And it's too much of the other voice that I'm going to expect you to take these pictures down. I have talked to widows, more females about, well, you still talking about him, or you're still upset about that, or you have these pictures up. And for them to say, well, if we're going to date, you got to get rid of that. And for widows and widowers to know, you should not have to subject yourself to someone demanding that you remove that information or those pictures of your late spouse to date. That should not be a criteria, because there are people that are confident in themselves that will meet you in that spot and love you in that journey.
Yeah.
And both of you do that. I've heard Kim talk about it, but now it's like, oh, sugar, I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
So my expectations are there because I know that it's possible. Now, choosing to do that may mean that I may be single because I'm not willing to settle for somebody that would approach me less than.
Right.
But I know that exists. And that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And that is possible. Mr. Low key over here.
I'm just being myself.
I know you both are. That's why I had to interview you both together, because you both low key.
Yeah.
Now guys may not do this, but just pretend. Mm-hmm. If a guy comes to you and says, hey, I met this widow I'm thinking about dating, what advice would you give them, Fred? And then the same to you, Lionel, in a second.
Be yourself, and understand there's going to be issues, and you got to be accepting of certain things, but watch out for red flags and see how things feel. Like you said, guys don't do that too often, but
I said pretend, right? I said pretend.
Just kind of the same thing. Just
okay, let's do it different. Your son comes to you and asks that could happen. And Alex could come to you and ask it. That's a more likely scenario for the children that you are fathers to. He comes out, Nikolai or Lexi comes to you and say, hey, Dad, this girl's a young widow. Her husband died in the military, and I'm thinking about dating her. No kids, and I know Miss Tina is a widow. Was a widow before and will always be. What do you think I should be thinking of or looking for?
I'd kind of sit them down, give them the talk. Basically, the same thing. Help them process, go through the same process of awareness that I came to the hard way, and just give them my advice on some things to look out for, and don't let red flags, something you pick up as a red flag to you, go by without being dealt with, because what may be acceptable to me in some respects may not be acceptable to you, but basically because of age or whatever. But just don't expect this person to forget about the other person, but beware that if they don't let them try and make you like the other person either. So just to keep things civil or keep things from being too contentious, don't go along with that kind of stuff, because in the end, it's not going to be healthy. You may seem to be okay at first, you change this, change that, but after a while, it's not going to be good, because you're not that person. So either they want you for you or they don't. So there might be a few hiccups, but notice everything else, but kind of keep that guide in mind, stay on that path. And everything, if it works out, it'll be better in the long run. But if it looks like it's not going to work out based on how you feel, not how they feel, how you feel, then use your best judgment.
I like that answer. I would say support her in the loss of her husband, and just kind of feel her out. Just be supportive for the first part, and just date as normal you would anyone else, and don't allow her to try to conform you into her former husband, but just go along with it. If you see anything that's not going right, you're gonna have to make your own decision. And either leave, because if you don't and you see this continuing, it's not going to end well. So I think you need to just sit back and kind of see how it goes, but allow her to mourn, but not to the point where that's all she's doing is talking about her former husband and trying to turn you into him. That's not going to be good. But just support her.
Okay.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Tagish.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.